We did fly it at 120 meters with 60% side lap, but there was still a 40% time reduction in what we needed to fly to get very comparable data.
For over 5 years, ROCK Robotic has partnered with over 1,000 clients worldwide, completing over 30,000 jobs from quick turnarounds to the most complex projects. We specialize in aerial and drone LiDAR hardware and software backed by our ROCK Pro Services team, processing over 1 million acres of data with expert QC/QA for precise, high-quality results. Based in the US, our industry-leading customer success team works as an extension of your crew, hands-on from the first flight to final deliverable. No matter the scale or challenge, we're by your side, ensuring you capture the exact data you need to succeed.
Welcome back to the ROCK Ultra Demo Tour, where professionals in surveying and geospatial services put the new ROCK Ultra LiDAR to the test. We talk about the experience, the workflow, and most importantly, the data. Today, I'm joined by Drew Serafin, Chief Operating Officer of Featherlong Aerial, based in Colorado, USA. Before we get into his Ultra experience, let's start with a little background. Drew, tell us about your business and what you do.
Hi. As mentioned, my name is Drew Serafin. I am the Chief Operations Officer of Featherlong Aerial. We are a remote sensing service provider based in Colorado. We do remote sensing, specifically specializing in LiDAR, with an emphasis on difficult terrain, specifically mountainous terrain with very high elevation gains and very remote access.
Okay, great. Definitely a lot of mountains over there in Colorado,
Yeah.
as some of you may know. So can you tell us a little bit about the project site you chose for your Ultra demo?
Yeah, so we chose an avalanche vein, basically a little runway where avalanches happen, where the trees have been cleared out. It's located near Frisco, Colorado. We chose this as a test bed for our purposes because it's very similar to what we encounter regularly in the field, very high elevation gains between top and bottom, very diverse terrain and very diverse vegetation.
Excellent. So with the ROCK Ultra LiDAR, what were you trying to prove or accomplish on this specific project?
What we were trying to really evaluate is comparing data quality between the R3 Pro, the R2A, and then the Ultra. And then a big part of that was also acquisition time, seeing as how you're able to fly higher, much faster. We wanted to compare at what data quality level can we fly faster? What is time saving?
Absolutely. So I'll ask you this. What was it like flying the ROCK Ultra?
The ROCK Ultra was fantastic in the sense that we already used the R3 Pro, and so it was a plug and play. The workflow was identical to the R3 Pro, so that was really, really fantastic because the difference between us going from the R2A to the R3 Pro, there was quite a bit of standard operating procedure editing that we needed to do, but with the R3 Pro to the Ultra, it's identical, so it just went right in to our system.
Awesome. Love to hear that about the easy integration and the ability to fly the Ultra without too much confusion. If you're already a ROCK Robotic client and you're in that ecosystem and you're using our products, there is not too much of a learning curve there. So what I'll say is, what stood out to you about the ROCK Ultra when flying it at higher altitudes or not needing terrain following?
Uh, well, for us, because we have such extreme terrain differences from the top of our AOI to the bottom of our AOI was a little over 2,000 feet. So we still need to do terrain following for our purposes, but flying higher, it's much more comfortable. We very typically have to build our mission plans off of SRTM data. And we have found that that can be off by as much as 20 meters in some areas, which can put us right at the tops of the trees. So being able to fly at 120 meters compared to 50 meters, that gives us a great buffer room for safety on flying. And then the next biggest thing was time saving. We saw about a 40% reduction in the data set that we collected. We did fly it at 120 meters with 60% side lap because we really wanted to just capture as much data as we could to kind of evaluate what kind of fill we were going to get, points per square meter. But there was still a 40% time reduction in what we needed to fly to get very comparable data.
Wow, love to hear that. 40%. How does that make you feel?
Very good. We do very high acreage jobs quite frequently. The time in the field is one of our biggest expenses. So being able to reduce flight times by 40%, that's pretty fantastic. And if we're only going after just ground classification for topographic purposes, we could even reduce that even more by increasing the flight speed, a little bit less overlap, and we could still get quality ground hits, get a good survey map out of that. So in the future, we would like to even explore flying faster and getting fewer points and see what the time saving would be at that point.
Yeah, really push it. Maybe you can get it up to 50%, which would just be kind of groundbreaking there. That is a lot of time saved. I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit because you mentioned that with this specific job that you still needed, the use of terrain following. Could you just dive a little bit deeper on that and maybe relate it to some of the projects you guys typically and normally fly and what that looks like, what terrain following means to a surveyor in drone LiDAR, and kind of give us a little bit of a crash course on that aspect?
Sure. So the terrain following is very important to our workflow because we can't just plan flat mission plans across something that has such high elevation differences between the top and bottom. And then even across the AOI, there's several valleys that can cause issues without terrain following. So we set our terrain following to 50 meters, typically with the R3 Pro. In the Ultras case, we're able to go to the max of 120 meters for legality flying in the United States. And it's able to keep a really consistent data coverage throughout the entire AOI because you're the same distance away from the terrain the entire time. So it's really good at keeping the spacing and the overlap very consistent through the data.
Love to hear that. So, speaking of the data, what stood out to you most about the point cloud from this flight?
The thing that surprised us the most were there's power lines down at the bottom of the AOI. With R3 Pro, when we go perpendicular to the power lines, they're very patchy. So there's segments that are captured and then the rest of it is a blank. And so when we do need to capture above ground utilities, we have to fly a separate mission plan parallel to the power lines. But with the ROCK Ultra, we were flying perpendicular and it still captured excellent power lines.
Awesome. Love to hear that. So let's talk a little bit more about the data set and what kind of features or ground detail were you able to capture with the ROCK Ultra?
So we chose this particular area because it has a very diverse mix of everything that we kind of run into. We see man-made structures, parking lots, roadways, overhead utilities. We see a very diverse vegetation, both high and low, both very dense vegetation, very extreme changes in terrain. There's a little bit of cliff band in here. They're really short, but it does exist in this data set towards the top. And then there's also a waterway, and we were very curious how it was going to perform around water.
Great. And how do you think it performed around the water?
It did very well. We definitely we would like to evaluate it on a larger water feature. This one was just a small creek that was at its most 10 feet across. But it was able to capture the drainages very well. It was able to show very good detail on all the terrain around it. And so being able to map out where drainages would be is a very good job. We were also very impressed with the high vegetation areas. It had excellent ground penetration. That was another thing that we were concerned about flying so high. it was still able to get below the vegetation and get excellent ground hits, and we were able to get a very detailed surface.
Yes, and we absolutely love to hear that. And what I'll ask you is to just elaborate a little bit more on how important it is to be able to get that penetration into through the ground, through the vegetation, and create these surface models for surveying in your business in particular and for your clients.
Yeah, so most of our clients were in very heavily forested areas, and then the portions that aren't forested, they're covered by low vegetation, typically like scrub oak. And scrub oak is really hard to penetrate through because it has just such perfect foliage coverage. It is able to really cover most of the ground. And it's very important to be able to actually penetrate through so that when they do have construction projects, infrastructure, trying to make it through the trees, where they're going to be able to cut, where they're going to be able to place their designs. They need to know exactly where the ground is and not where the trees are. And that's a huge advantage of LiDAR, is because it's able to get down through that. Other methods like photogrammetry, they fall apart in high vegetation areas. There's just not enough photo overlap to actually see the ground through the foliage. And so that's where LiDAR really accelerates. And then also on steep terrain, photogrammetry also falls apart just because the photos on angles, they have a difficult time actually identifying the exact point of the ground. Whereas LiDAR, it's shooting out an exact measurement, returning it, you know exactly where the ground is.
You guys hear that? I heard it. Drone LiDAR, it's better than photogrammetry. Guys, I kid. I
In a
know
lot of aspects, yes.
that'll start a whirlwind, but no, for specifically, dense vegetation and being able to penetrate through the 7 return system of the ROCK Ultra, shooting those laser beams down at the ground allows for it to be able to get through to the surface over orthomosaics, photogrammetry, which the ROCK Ultra is also capable of doing. But for this particular use case, it is much better to use the LiDAR for this. And maybe we can elaborate a little bit further, Drew, in what circumstances would you prefer to use orthomosaics?
Orthomosaics, they excel greatly on flat ground. They do fantastic. There's very low point noise because it's photos that are stacked on top of each other and then triangulating cross-reference to build a point cloud. So flat surfaces, photogrammetry is king, I would say, but that's on flat, unvegetated surfaces. As soon as you start adding in steep angles and then anything that covers the ground, it really starts to struggle and your processing time just skyrockets with photogrammetry. And then you also have to fly even denser, even probably denser than LiDAR for vegetated areas to get anywhere close to the same results.
Yeah, and we don't want that. We don't want it to take longer. An the ultra and LiDAR in general performs on flat ground too, but the photogrammetry has its place. And when you're doing planimetrics jobs or looking for brake lines or inspections, it can be very, very beneficial. So everyone in the comments, don't attack me. Or do attack me and increase our engagement. I'm okay with that as well. We can go back and forth, but just leave Drew out of it. Leave Drew out.
I mean, the huge benefit to anything rock is you get the best of both worlds because there is a camera with it, so you're able to do both at the same time.
You're absolutely correct. We have 2 versions. We have a 26 megapixel and we have a 45 megapixel camera option for the ROCK Ultra, both very capable. So I will say this. I would love to introduce Jamie Lackner, our ROCK Pro Services Manager, who spends time with the data very close. She QC, QAs all of our data sets in the ROCK Pro Services department, and she familiarizes herself and makes sure that ROCK Robotic clients have the best possible outcome deliverables for the job. Jamie, welcome.
Hi, pleasure to speak with you guys.
Thank you, Jamie. I'd love for you to kind of give us a little bit of your insight on the data set and what you thought was interesting, and just fill us in on kind of what your process looked like with the data set and what you're seeing.
Yeah. So probably my favorite thing that I picked out, because obviously you can see the features and it's best looked at when I take all the points, which I have up right now. I'm going to just get rid of the points. What really stood out to me is just how small certain features could be picked out. So down here is where I first noticed it. There's a little walking trail. It's starts kind of here near the parking lot and kind of these flat areas, and it just kind of scales up, and you can follow it across the entire AOI. And I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, there's the trail. And then if you keep going up past kind of the areas where, the trees have been removed, you said for the avalanche issues, there's another trail probably about 3/4 of the way up. I have to like slowly scope. It's a much, here it is. It's just this little trail. And I just love the fact that you can pick out that kind of detail, because when the points are on, if I go turn them back on, the trail up here where there's not as many trees, it's much easier to see, but definitely down below the lower trail, I couldn't pick it out at all in the raw point cloud. But once the surface model was generated from the point cloud, I was like, it just kind of highlighted it. And I thought that was really cool. And I was able to cross-reference it with kind of our map view. If you go and look, and if you go under layers, you do aerial with labels, and you zoom in, there's that Miners Creek Trail, and then down here was the Wheeler Trail. And I just thought that was really exciting to be able to be like, oh, I'm seeing something, and then have it confirmed in that regard. But no, Drew, I appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys. Featherlong has always been so wonderful to work with, and he's not kidding when you guys do big data sets. This 545 acres honestly is, while super impressive, I mean, we do thousands of acres of data sets with them. So it's always a pleasure to kind of be able to kind of see the progression of work, and to hear that it was such a time savings for you guys on the front end is all the better, because it just means that we can get data back to you faster. If you're spending less time in the field, means it's going to be quicker to us, and then hopefully quicker to your clients in the end.
Awesome, Jamie. Thank you very much. Before you leave, just wanted to ask Drew, what has your experience been working with ROCK Pro Services?
Featherlong Aerial has been with the ROCK for a little over 3 years now. And so the very infant stages all the way up until now. One thing that has been very consistent through the whole process of growth is ROCK Pro Services. Even though there's growing pains with software development and improvements, there's going to be bugs. No matter what, when we reach out, they reach back very instantly. During business hours, typically it's less than 10 minutes, we'll get a response. And then if it is outside of business hours, pretty much the moment that they get in the morning, we get a response. And then they constantly work with us to figure out solutions. So the ROCK Pro Services team has been the very consistent part of the ROCK that has just made the experience very enjoyable. And the software upgrades, I mean, any company that you go with, you're going to run into the same thing. But I can say that ROCK makes up for any bugs that do come up with ROCK Pro Services. They work very diligently to correct any issues that we do come across.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We love to hear that, Drew. Thank you so much for that great testament to ROCK Robotic. And we pride ourselves on being an extension of your business. And we are a part of your team. And we are here to help you get the job done. And our success is your success. And we truly believe in that. Thank you, Jamie. We appreciate you jumping in and going over the data. So, Drew, back to the Ultra. Let's talk a little bit more about the workflow. You mentioned that you're saving up to 40% in time, but from field to finish, the whole big picture, how did using the Ultra affect your workflow?
The Ultra really didn't affect our workflow, which is a very good thing. Most of the time when we field a new sensor, we have to rewrite our standard operating procedures because it changes sensor to sensor. Because we already have the R3 Pro and because the workflow is identical, it didn't change it at all, except for the flight parameters. We had to adjust those a little bit. And then this amount of time that we spent in the field, that was greatly reduced. So that's really the only change, is that it was just improved. if you're coming from a different provider, or this is the first LiDAR unit that you want to use, it's a very simple standard operating procedure that you need to follow in order to get up and running with it.
Excellent. Excellent. Love to hear that. So it's like, wasn't a scary experience. Everything kind of stayed what it should be, and you didn't have to reinvent the wheel over your company. And we know that can be a very stressful situation. So you were able to integrate the ROCK Ultra very seamlessly into your workflow.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So to follow up on that question, which part of the Ultra's workflow was the easiest or the most enjoyable?
The most enjoyable part of the Ultra experience really just it stems from the time in the field, the reduction in labor out there in the field. It is fantastic. We've flown this particular area several times with the R2A, the R3 Pro, and now the Ultra. And typically to capture very similar acreage with R3 Pro, we're out there all day. It just cycling batteries, keeping them charged, and it's a painstaking process. It works, but the Ultra, we were done before 1 o'clock, I think. And so that was just very refreshing. It was kind of like, what do I do with the rest of my day now?
What did you do with the rest of your day?
Data processing. Yeah.
Data processing.
Which is great. Instead of doing it the next day, we're able to start working on it that day.
Awesome. Love to hear that. If you had to sum up your Ultra experience in one statement or phrase, Drew, what would it be?
The statement that I would use to sum up the Ultra was just plug and play. That's the biggest thing for us. In other sensors that we have integrated into our system, typically we have to do a bit of standard operating procedure rewrite, and then doing a little bit of troubleshooting. What is the best way to actually integrate this? With R3 Pro, it was just very streamlined, plug and play. There was no question of how is this going to work. It was the same exact workflow, plugged right in. We were able to get going, no problems.
Amazing. Yeah, we often say that the ROCK Ultra is the easy button for drone LiDAR. And I think that the plug and play aspect of what you're saying is how you would describe the ROCK Ultra fits right into that. And we would like to thank you, Drew, for flying this awesome, amazing data set. And everyone watching, you can go into the YouTube description, and we have a case study article where you can actually see the data set for yourself in the ROCK Cloud. So everyone go down in the description, check out the article for more images, photos from the job, and the data set itself, and you can explore the data on your end. Drew, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to test new equipment.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Drew. Everyone, you could join us again next week for another ROCK Ultra demo. We'll be here, same time, same place, and we're going to keep cranking these out, and we look forward to showing you guys more awesome drone LiDAR data and content. See you next time.